Senator, nice to see you, sir.
Thank you, Greta. I enjoyed your series from Alaska. It was very enlightening.
Well, I'm flattered that you watch indeed. And of course, we've been watching you. Big victory the other night. Was it 24 points?
Yes, indeed.
There were reports that your opponent, J.D. Hayworth, has not yet called you to congratulate you, which is customary. Has he called you?
No, he hasn't, but I'm not surprised.
I guess maybe he's a sore loser.
Well, maybe.
All right. So there's a lot been going on as you have been involved in your primary. I know, but you've also been involved, but hearing things in Washington. But I want to talk first about the economy. We're still not soaring out of this recession, although Vice President Biden says that we are, but the unemployment level is still rather grim. What are your thoughts tonight about our economy and the direction we're headed?
My thoughts are that their policies have been total disaster. You can talk about their argument of jobs created, jobs saved, jobs this, jobs that. The fundamental fact is they said if we pass this $782 billion stimulus package, the maximum unemployment would be 8%. It's not. It's hanging around 9.5%, because some economists say that it could even go higher. The much vaunted program that was going to keep 3 to 4 million Americans in their homes has been a colossal failure. Housing starts, as you well know, hit a 15-year low or so. So it's time that they sat down and reevaluated and figured out where they're going and what they're doing, which is disastrous for our economy. They might look and see what the conservative government in England is planning.
Well, it's sort of interesting that you mentioned the jobs created. I'm a bit curious about this. Is that I'm all in favor of jobs created. I think everybody wants jobs created. But in order for jobs created to be really an effective argument, it has to outpace the unemployment level. So, I mean, the problem is the unemployment level is stagnant. It's not moving. So I guess I'm unmoved by the whole argument that we're in good shape when we create jobs. Yes, I guess it could be worse.
Well, I guess it's possible that things could be worse, but they certainly aren't where the administration, the president, the vice president, and the secretary of Treasury said it would be if we passed the stimulus package. But I've been traveling all over the state of Arizona, and probably one of the biggest aspects of this problem, if not the fundamental policies themselves, it's the total uncertainty that businesses, large and small, have about their future. When's the next regulation coming down as part of Obama reform, like the requirement to report to the IRS every transaction of $600? What's going to happen with the tax cuts? They're totally unsure of the future of what the government is going to be doing to them. And so, therefore, those that are able to are holding back. And obviously, that's having a terrible effect. Look, as I say, I travel all over this state, and I've traveled all over this country. People are hurting, and hurting very badly. And that message is not only reaching Washington, but they want more of the same. How do you justify that?
Well, I'm a little bit curious. I mean, when you listen to members of the administration, whether it's the vice president or the president himself or representatives, they say that things are improving. Do you think they truly believe that they're improving? Or are they stubborn? Or are they right?
Well, I think you could argue that there has been some progress. I don't see how you could pour that kind of money into the economy without seeing some result. But the fact is, one, it's far, far short of their predictions, and two, now it seems the economy seems to have slowed down again after a fairly, at least some improvements in the spring and early summer. Now it seems to have fallen off again, and the unemployment numbers are still stubbornly high. And so, look, why not try something different? Stop spending. Stop spending. Instead of accumulating this incredible mounting debt on our kids and our grandkids. That's really the most terrible part of this whole policies that they've been pursuing that we haven't even seen the impact on, and that is the debt we're leaving on our kids and our grandkids.
Well, but the problem is that if stop spending is something they need to do, either they don't get it or they're stubborn and don't want to admit that they're wrong and are unwilling to sort of revisit their strategy and how to improve the economy.
Well, they're Keynes on steroids, obviously, and they are unwilling, for a variety of reasons, to admit that what they have tried isn't working. But the majority of the American people clearly feel that way. The majority of the American people, and I guarantee you in Arizona, are fed up, and they're angry, and they're frustrated. And they, again, have such an uncertain future, whether you're a small business person or large. They have the CEO of one of the major high-tech corporations was on Fox today talking about how they believe that he believes that the economic policies have been abysmal failures, and people are very angry. They're very angry, and that's why I think you're going to see in about 60-some days a election of seismic proportions.
You know, it's sort of interesting because the economy, one of the things that influences the economy is the American psyche, whether the Americans think that we're going to get out of this, whether they feel comfortable. And if you look at the consumer debt numbers that came down, it said Americans are taking their extra cash, paying down their debts, they're not going out to get mortgages. So Americans, if you look what they're doing with their own personal finances, it shows that they are frightened, that they won't work, that they don't think this is working. And it's as though the Obama administration either isn't worried about that, is ignoring that, or they are so convinced that this is the way to go.
Well, it's probably the latter, but let me just give you one example, our community banks. You know, community banks are the ones that lend the money to the small business people. They're the ones that really are the engines of job creation. And I've met with our community bankers here in Arizona on several occasions, including down in Tucson in the past several days. They say they are squeezed by the regulators with increasing regulation, increasing requirements for cash reserves, and at the same time, they're being told by the administration to lend more money. They can't do both. And they are having enormous difficulties. As you know, our real estate market here in Arizona is hurt as bad or as worse than any place in the country because we were at the crest of the wave. But when you look at their ability to provide the wherewithal for small business people, it simply isn't there. And finally, could I say, why not give small businesses a payroll tax holiday, pay for it with the stimulus money, and let them hire some people and buy some things?
Well, we'll see what happens when everyone comes back to town in September. All right. Another issue near and dear to your heart and many people in Arizona and other people across the country is the whole issue of illegal immigration. And sort of as an adjunct to that, the information that I learned this week, and we've been covering the story for more than a year, is that an American is one of the leaders of one of the cartels right over the border in Mexico. I'm sure you have a thought about that. The fact that an American is leading one of these drug cartels, for some reason, is more stunning to me.
Well, it's stunning, and also let me point out that this latest massacre down in Mexico, about 100 miles south of the border, where they found 72 bodies, 14 women who were apparently migrants from other countries like El Salvador and others. And this murder, this massacre, has been carried out, according to news reports, by these people called Zetas, who are former military members who have now taken up with the drug cartels and formed their own. This is the most cruel and brutal things that have happened in our hemisphere. And what I don't get, Greta, is where are the immigration activists and the human rights activists and others that wouldn't conclude that the way you stop this terrible situation, one of the ways, is to secure our borders. Then this human trafficking dries up and people come to this country legally. But they don't seem to get that. Where are the human rights activists with these terrible abuses that are taking place as we speak? Somewhere in this city tonight, in Phoenix, this afternoon and tonight, there's a drop house where a whole bunch of people are crammed in together, they're kept in unspeakable conditions, and they're held for ransom. That shouldn't be taking place.
Where are they, though? Let me ask you that question. Where are they? Because, I mean, there are the issues, there are the economic issues, there's securing the border, there's the drug issues, but there is the human trafficking, the humanitarian issues. I mean, there's so many of them. Why aren't other peoples more concerned about this? Why don't we hear more about it?
I don't know, but they certainly have been oblivious to the increase in violence that's taken place over the last year or two. And by the way, accusing me of changing positions as I've watched this violence grow. 28,000 people since 2006 have been murdered in Mexico as a result of the drug cartels, human smuggling, etc. 2,000 bodies in the last decade have been found in the desert outside Tucson. And you can imagine what it's like to die in the desert. And these are people who are being smuggled up, most of them. Some of them are victims of drug cartels fighting with one another. And then turn around and say, don't worry, our border is more secure than ever. It is completely oblivious to what's happening on the other side of the border and continues to happen in our own state. And the majority of the American people have it figured out, but frankly, apparently some of these immigration groups, pro-immigration groups, haven't figured it out yet. Secure the border, then we can address some of the other issues.
All right, and you've been actively pursuing the issue of securing the border, you and your colleague in the U.S. Senate from Arizona and others in Arizona. And then there's the issue of once secure, do you think that there is a chance, and would you support and promote and work towards a comprehensive immigration reform once the borders are secure?
Yes, and first of all, John Kyle and I have a 10-point plan that if that is completed, we can secure the borders. In Israel, they have secure borders, by the way, with surveillance and fences and people, and that's what we need down there. And by the way, John Kyle and I, we're glad that more money was appropriated, but the failure of the Homeland Security people to fund the Operation Streamline, which means someone who's a repeat crosser is incarcerated for 15, 30, 60 days before they're returned. It's been had great positive effect on people who are repeat crossers. I'd be certainly glad to address issues like a temporary worker program and others that are necessary. But first we have to convince the American people that they're not going to have to face another flood of people who come into our country illegally if we act without having the border secured.
What do you make of the race up in Alaska with your colleague, Senator Lisa Murkowski, and Joe Miller, who it's neck and neck?
Well, it certainly is, again, a testimony to the impact that Sarah Palin, despite the attacks from the left, has on the American political scene. I continue to admire and respect all her hard work, and she and Todd and Cindy and I remain close. And so she's, one thing you got to say, she's carrying on in the tradition of Teddy Roosevelt. She's in the arena.
What is it about Governor Palin? Because, I mean, the media, can't get enough of her. I don't care which cable news show you're talking about, which network, which newspaper, and, the ones who hate her, they're still talking about her and writing about her. What is it about Governor Palin that seems to get everyone all revved up?
Well, you just spent time with her up in Alaska. She has a certain inner strength and a degree of radiance about her that is very unusual. And she has the courage of her convictions, and she's not bothered by the critics. And frankly, she and Todd and their children, having had their ups and downs, as all families do, are in many ways an inspiration to many Americans. And the way that people react to her in the gatherings that I've been with her is I haven't seen anything quite that fervent since the days of Ronald Reagan. And I'm not saying she does everything right. I'm not saying that she doesn't make mistakes. We all do. But she certainly has had an impact on America, and I think that's what a lot of us want to do.
Senator, thank you very much, and look forward to coming back to Washington. We'll do an office visit, if you'll permit, so we can do the interviews that we so often do and so much enjoy.
Well, I look forward to it. And again, I enjoyed watching your visit to Alaska. It must have been a great experience.
Senator, it makes so much difference. The same reason we went down to your border in Arizona and going up to Alaska and looking at the pipeline from Anwar area and the North Slope down to Valdez. I wish the president would visit your border, and I wish that for any other issue that people would take these trips up and just take a look at it. It makes a big difference, doesn't it?
Well, the next time that the president's out to help Harry Reid or Barbara Boxer, maybe he could stop by and accept the invitation that John Kyle